way to let Ireland know you're now part of the family. Hi, everyone. I think we can summarize the next few minutes together with a song, because I hear the Irish like to sing. You guys like the Rolling Stones? Yeah. All right. Well, if you know the words, sing along with me. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. All right. So, do I have a clicker here? So on the terms of it, if this is not what you want, it'll at least be what you need. So what's next starts now, the tug of war of work. I am the chaos pilot and head of talent at X and Moonshot Factory. I feel very privileged to be in the role that I am in, literally having fingerprints on the future and helping shape that. And because of that, I feel a huge responsibility in helping shape what that means, not only for the here and now, but for our next generation. So talking a little bit about Alphabet and X, many of you may not be aware of X, formerly Google X. But for the last 13 years, we've had the privilege of having innovators, entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers, designers, architects come in and help us shape moonshots in the world of biology, medicine, agriculture, technology, all places. And these are just some of the different companies that have come out of our organization that are working on very big moonshot problems. Moonshots, well, what are they? It's very simple for us. Moonshots essentially are at the intersection of a huge problem, a radical solution, and a breakthrough technology. And what if I told all of you today that you have access to becoming a moonshot taker, no matter what your job is? No matter what your job is. We'll talk about the mindsets of what it takes to be able to do those things and create moonshots in your little corners of the world or your big scopes of roles in ways that you are shaping people and culture for the next generation. Sound good? All right, what you want so far? That's great. All right, so I love this quote because I got to hear David Ulrich, who, by the way, I stand on the shoulders of your work. Thank you so much for all that you've done for our industry. But this is really at the crux of everything we think about. At the Moonshot Factory, we believe that great designers build simple certainties for unknown futures. And when you think about working on the future, future casting is really interesting. How many of you forecast? Budgets, people, headcount, et cetera, what you're going to eat for dinner. I've seen that before. But future casting is actually a very interesting philosophy and mindset for us. It actually denotes that we don't know where we're going to land. So we're going to cast that out and see the different insights, data, all of the things that we know about conversations of communities, connection, context, and we build that into how we think we're going to shape the how of now to get to whatever the future is going to look like eventually. And so there are mindsets and tactics from a moonshot perspective that I think are very important for everybody here to know today because, like I said, it's accessibility for you to be able to see that. So forecasting or future casting mindsets. Well, I'll share 4 with you today. The first rule of working on the future is that we don't know it. There is a responsibility and an integrity in making sure that anytime you lean into that kind of work, that is the first question, and that is the first piece of insight that you carry with you as you build on that work. So one of the things that we talk about at the Moonshot Factory is whenever we're onto something, we have to be curious because it's so humbling to know that we also might not know anything about what that looks like. That's what it means to work on things that are unknown, right? And so the question, the activating question for us becomes, how might we actually frame those problems denote that you know there's a problem, into an opportunity space where the opportunity could be something greatly unknown or something that you can really lean into and be very curious about. And I like to quote Jay-Z, who says, "I got 99 problems, but an opportunity ain't one," paraphrasing, for those of you hip-hop Fans out there? Another mindset. At X, one of the key criteria of being able to make it through the doors of the factory is that you balance the tension of audacity and humility. And so a lot of our project leads, a lot of the folks that are working on these things are thinking about how to make their project better and succeed and how to kill it at the same time. You think about the tug-of-war work, we live in the tension of that. And we love that because at the end of the day, 99.9% of the projects that we work on at X, they actually fail. And of the companies that you saw that I just flashed up there, few of those companies were probably 26 different iterations of a project or an idea before they even made it out the door. But a lot of it is really powered by the learnings and the foundation of what we've been able to craft and create for moonshots. Another piece, shifting perspective. Everybody loves a needle mover, right? Evelyn talked about that red thread. But the question here is, how might we actually find ways to thread the needle? A mindset for innovation requires that you know how to thread, be really curious and shift that perspective so that eventually you can move it, so that you can innovate in a way that might be different and not just moving a needle. Because by the way, you can move a needle and realize there's no more thread. And that is a very humbling insight to know, which is why part of this is also working on the hardest part of your problem first, listening to your users, knowing what they want, creating that community. The product and design mindset to architect and design the future of work requires that we understand what experience we want and we put ourselves in that. Every single person in this room, because we work in people and culture, we are all users of our own product. Shift perspective, find ways to thread the needle. Take smart risks. We hear about experimentation all the time. And actually at the Moonshot Factory, it's hilarious because if you say experiment, everyone's there. But it's not actually about the experiment. It's about your experimental apparatus. How do you set up the experiment? What outcomes are you looking for? What opportunities are you actually trying to address? And then how might you take a look at that risk, that thread that needs to go into that needle, and de-risk it? Sometimes you can de-risk entire industries by asking a very pointed question. That's the power that we have in thinking in this type of mindset. One way you can do that is to hold bad idea brainstorms with your team. It's not always about succeeding, but success is about looking at the failures, the learning, the first attempt in learning. Some of you love acronyms, so I'm just throwing that out there. That's what FAIL stands for. My 11-year-old told me that. All right, so as designers and architects, what actually is our role in all of this? Ba-dum-bum, here comes another acronym. All right. The tactics. I said we were talking about mindsets. I shared 4 with you. We're gonna thread the needle to the actual tactics in a lovely grid that's upcoming here. But it is about looking at your role in the lens of the reality of it, the opportunity that's ahead of you, the leadership that is required for you to be able to see what it actually means in the hands of the people that are going to be touching the programs and products and experiences and cultures that we will cultivate and create. And then how are you going to engage? How are you going to not just create an internal communications plan, not just create a snappy video, but how are you going to let them own, give them back the agency to create that traction for you? Here's a grid. Mindsets always ground at the very bottom. The 4 questions we talked about. From a reality perspective, the tactics are to understand it and mind the mess. Because in the mess is the compost of the wonderful ideas and the things that you may not even know you're tapping into. It is one of the greatest things that humanity can offer, is give us the opportunity to lean into the uncomfortable mess of whatever the reality is, so that we can ask ourselves, how might we find ways to thread the needle so we can move it? Opportunity, the tactic, is to articulate not just your goal, but your desired outcome. Connect through context so that we can ask, how might we frame our problems as an opportunity space to lean into and not just solve? Leadership. Leading with audacity and humility is huge in working in uncertain and unknown and volatile environments. You gotta be curious always. So how might we lean into the audacious, big ideas and also be open to being wrong about it or maybe shutting it down and killing it? You may have programs you're holding on to. I encourage you, dispassionately assess it and see whether or not you want to walk into that next week on Monday. And lastly, engagement. Engage and experiment so that you can build trust through traction with your users, your employee base, your entire organization, your leaders, and most importantly, yourselves. Because then you can ask, how might we de-risk our ideas through a series of experimenting? At X, we believe that technological innovation comes from personal breakthrough. And so I leave you all with these 4 questions to really just think about what are some things in your day where you can give yourself agency back in the role that you play in shaping what a possible moonshot could be in your day-to-day work.